Hey guys, this is Tim,
And this is Willem.
and this is Hear Me Out Pitch. This is a show for those of you who aren't familiar. This is a show where we review movies and shows and talk about what we like, what we didn't like, and more often than not, we try to write our own pitch for the movie
To some degree, or sometimes we just watch a movie, want to cry
because
because
it's so
we
bad.
watched it. Yeah, finally did that today. And I hope you all are enjoying how wonderful our voices sound today because just invested in another microphone. So now I'm not hogging all the sound from poor Tim because I'm so loud. So it's great.
It's fine. I generally speak a little bit quieter anyway.
I had to like set it so my microphone is a little quieter than yours so that but it's nice though because now if we lean back, if we go forward, it's great. And I'm doing a lot better with headphones in, so it's crazy. I'm getting a lot better with that, more confident. So last time you all heard it, I had a stroke. Again, not as bad as of our first episode, but yeah. And hopefully you're not going to hear all the clippy clacks from my apartment. And yeah, just because even while recording, I was just absolutely sick of all the little stuff. And you'll still hear like my fingers pop. There you go. Ah, some ASMR or whatever it's called.
ASMR makes me uncomfy.
It does. It's all like, do you want to know what it's like to have your tongue inside your mouth? And you're like, I don't know what's happening. Oh, yeah, I kind of like it. I kind of want to go with it still with headphones in. Well, if I have a stroke in the middle of the recording, you all will know. So let's see how long William survives. You can play a drinking game with it. Okay, with that, I'm done. I immediately got self-conscious when I thought of talking.
I noticed that you were
I was like, oh,
starting to
oh,
starting to go.
oh. I just want to make sure we sound good. But I'm happy. I'm really happy, and I hope that this is another step in this podcast getting better. So, but yeah, thank you again for everyone listening, and we hope that you enjoy this episode. And with that, we will dive right into it. And I'm leading us off, and as we warned you guys, we were gonna start doing movies that didn't do so good, and I took the bullet and I went first because Tim had a very busy week. And again, I also need to apologize for how late last episode was. That was on me. It was completely on me. I sometimes life just hits you, and you just
Life kind
get
of kicked us in the teeth last
it
week.
did, and I you all know what it's like to want to do an assignment or want to do anything, and you just never have time for it. So yeah. So with that, I'm gonna get into it. And the episode I did, the sorry, not the episode, the movie I did was the 2013 movie by our favorite director, M. Night Shyamalan. Oh, did I say that right? I don't think I haven't said his last name correct in years because I make fun of his last name because I'm a jerk because he made a movie that does not exist. We will not talk about that movie that doesn't exist.
Oh,
Oh, uh-huh.
I know what movie does.
Oh.
I know exactly what movie you're saying
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't
And
exist.
I do love some of M. Night's. I'll just call him M. Night. Um, a lot of people going, man, he can't. I'm not going to try to say his last name anymore because I always want to say Shamalama Ding Dong. Because again, I got so angry about said movie that we do not speak of.
What
So
movie?
I don't know. I don't know. There is no Warren Bossing say. There's your hint.
Oh,
Zach, you don't get that reference, so
oh,
whatever.
just thinking about the movie that doesn't exist makes me
Oh,
uncomfy.
it's so uncomfy.
We're not ever gonna touch that
Ever.
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 We don't need
We don't
to.
need to. We don't need to because we can just go watch the original stuff. But I'm going to be not reviewing. I'll be going over M. Night's movie After Earth 2013, which I remember when it came out. I was finishing up my senior year in high school. Oh, gross. Tim,
I was
no.
just starting middle school.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, it's fine. But I was genuinely excited to see this movie. And again, I didn't though because of the reviews. I was really excited because I think it was one of Will Smith's first movies in a long time.
Mhm.
He had been in a weird stage of, not a weird stage, but he wanted to be a dad. And he was kind of busy, but he went and did this with his son. And, I love Jaden Smith and Karate Kid. And I was like, this is going to be good. And then I watched it last night. It wasn't. It wasn't good. But there are so many things that I was like, this honestly had a lot of potential. It was amazing of how much potential there was. So I wanted to talk to you guys about the summary of the movie really quick, and then I'll talk about what I didn't like and what I did like and how I change it, certain scenes. But to quickly summarize, 1,000 years has passed from our time, and the humankind has moved into outer space because aliens have come and they've dropped off these, and we don't ever see this other alien race, and they made these special bioweapons called the Ursa, and the Ursa do not have sight or hearing. They just have smell, and they smell the pheromones we secrete when we are scared. So humans are getting hunted down based on our fear. And we are shown 1,000 years in the future, and civilizations have come up with this military protocol of what's called ghosting, which I'm very familiar with in real life. Anyway, we're not here to talk about my dating life. But anyway, to ghost means to drop all of your emotions. For all of you Star Trek fans out there, think of the goal of these soldiers was to become like the Vulcans. They have very little emotion, actually none emotion at all. And that way they are completely invisible to the Ursa, and they are able to fight them and hunt them down. And if you're starting here going, this kind of sounds like A Quiet Place. It was, which is kind of crazy that this movie came first and it did so bad. But the thing about this movie is there's only one Ursa, only one beast that's really shown throughout this whole movie after the whole explanation. So Will Smith plays, I have the cast list up here, but I accidentally exited it when I was trying to, oh no, not the sirens. Sorry everyone for the...
They found us.
They found us. That's the Silly Goose Police, Tim. You need to turn yourself in.
Fat chance.
I'm not going back to jail.
They'll never take me alive.
That is one of my favorite vines. That's the joke police. You gotta turn yourself in. I'm not going back to jail. I just thought of something, and it's fine. Okay, anyway. So Will Smith plays a character named Cypher. Cypher Rage. Cypher is the elite of this group of soldiers. He became one of the first, they say it was the first. It was very weird. It was so weird, guys, how they explain this, because it was like 1,000 years has gone past, but it's like, wait a minute, are you saying that this is because of the aliens that we went? It was just so weird how they try to explain it. But either way, humans came up with these soldiers, and the current leader of them is Cypher. And Cypher is the head of all this. He is one of the best hunters of the Ursa. He has no emotion, and his son is Katai. And played by Jaden Smith. He was Jaden Smith. That's all I can say. He was good at tearing up when needed. He was good at... Okay, we're not talking about that right at the moment. Sorry. So, Katai wants to become one of these soldiers. He wants to graduate from this program. We see him at the beginning running faster than all the other cadets, and he is treated at the end of this scene of him running, he is sat down. He said, "Hey, you're not going to be allowed to graduate." And Jaden Smith is like, and it's so funny. And okay, I'm going to do some complaints. Is that they're trying to say that no emotion, no fear. And I feel like if you really wanted to really make humans appear like we've actually been affected by this alien race, you should really make it that there is no emotion.
Hmm.
And I feel like that would have made the movie even better. Like I really wanted them to be like Vulcans, or for who Spock is from
Yeah,
Star Trek. Okay.
yeah, I'm familiar.
Or like the elves from Lord of the Rings. They don't really show. They're space elves. Elves aren't really allowed to show.
Hmm.
I love how I have to turn it to fantasy.
I understand the Star Trek reference.
Okay. Okay, good. So, but you definitely understand though, like these are supposed to be no emotion, not
Yeah.
because of nobility, just because emotion is for the lesser, and we have been forced as humankind to be lesser. And I really wish that they would have worked with having no emotion, at least in this warrior class. Like maybe the normal humans, fine, but I feel like humans in general, they would have to learn to have no emotion. And I feel like when people struggle with it, those are the people who fail. And it would have been really cool to have Katai, who is the son of the most elite warrior, completely struggle with his emotions. Like sometimes he's completely turned off, and maybe it was because Jaden Smith wasn't that strong of an actor. But still, if they would have made a high focus just to be monotoned, and but then he has outbursts when they say, "Cadet, you're not going to pass," he just kind of like loses it,
Hmm.
and they're kind of like, and he's egging him on, and then finally he like screams at him like, "My father's coming home and I need to prove that I am worthy." And he goes, "And that's why you're not moving up. Tell your father congratulations for returning home." Like something like that. But they didn't. It was so weird. And what bugged me, Tim, is they did this weird accent because they tried to mix all like Southern African, English. They made this like weird accent so that it sounded like it maybe wouldn't in the future after we've all come across
Hmm.
it, and it just sounded so like they'd be talking and then it would like go up and down, and then all of a sudden they'd go all monotone for a bit, and then it would like go up and they'd be all excited, and then it would get all American for a quick second, or they would just say it was like they tried to like make this accent, but it just didn't work. And maybe that was the point, but it just didn't help.
Hmm.
I felt like just stick to American accent, stick to what the actors know, and just keep it monotone. It would have been great. I just
So I didn't have time to watch this movie at all. Just with a new job and school starting this week, and
Tim's been a busy man.
it's been rough. But I did have time a little bit today, just to kind of look up some of the stuff about this movie.
Uh huh.
And one of the biggest complaints was the accent. I can't remember exactly what website I used, but basically the biggest complaint was the accent. One, it didn't work, and two, it just got old after a while. And
It's distracting
yeah.
because it would be like they would say certain words with the phonetic of the English, but then it would like break down, and be like no suh, and they would like drop certain like oh, and it was just so weird, and it should have just been yeah. So that I'm glad you read up on that because that was
Mhm.
a ginormous thing. So we see that, but this it did anyway. So Katai wants to be a cadet
Mhm.
and he wants to become a ranger, and he's kind of letting he feels like he's letting his dad down. Whatever. His dad gets home, and they really were kind of showing the whole Vulcan thing for a bit. Like his wife sees him and she hugs him. She's all emotional. He's just kind of like, and he gets kind of like, I don't know. I just feel like if we would have just kept to everyone is a Vulcan and emotions are outlawed, not outlawed, but just really frowned upon, because
Mhm.
when you get too excited, too happy, you become emotional and you can easily give way to fear. And fear is not a bad thing. I'm not trying to say that, but when you are forced to get rid of fear, it is something that would, I think, would break humankind and we would turn into something robotic. And I wish that would have been
Mhm.
a focal point. And I honestly, if I would have done this, I would have really focused on this problem that he had. And I would have made it so that if you were too emotional in this new world civilization, you would have been lobotomized or at least killed. But I think lobotomized would be good. They found a way to just make you numb and you were, I feel like that would have been helpful because we don't see any Ursa attacks anymore. Like the main setting of this movie is on Earth because right now they are on a distant galaxy on a safe haven planet.
Nova Prime,
Yeah, Nova
something like
Prime.
that.
They're on Nova Prime, and they see that they barely mention it because you're quickly taken because the reason why they leave Nova Prime is because Cypher wants to take Katai on some field training, and they actually have an Ursa in this ship they go in, and the technology was so weird. It, it felt like everything was made out of bones, and it looked so weird, but yet it was futuristic. Ugh, ugh. Anyway, I just wish we would have seen more attacks that led up to the maybe that was the reason why he needed training. There were a lot more. Like I wish the Ursa were actually we could see a bigger problem for humanity, or maybe since they've run away to this distant planet, there's I don't know. But again, it's so weird because they're on this distant planet, but it's been 1,000 years, and they end up on Earth. And the reason why they end up on Earth, I'm sorry for getting all over the place, everyone, is again, Cypher wants to take Katai to train. And they go on a ship, and as they're traveling, they go through this asteroid belt, and they kind of they're just getting pelted and they're getting damaged. And he advises them, hey, we're going to do warp speed, basically. And they're like, sir, let's not recommend. He's like, well, we have to do it. We're going to get destroyed. They go through warp speed, and through some fancy scientific talk, they claim that the ship was taken to a familiar spot, like it was taken to an old outpost spot because they land on a mysterious planet, and they're outside of this mysterious planet, and Cypher's like, "Nuh-uh, we need to leave. We need to get out of here." And they're like, "We can't get out of here." And for some reason, and the ship got so damaged that they were like, "We gotta land." And Cypher's like, "All right, fine, we gotta land." And as they're landing, the ship's starting to shake. Katai is in strapped down. He's freaking out, and his dad comes in all calm. He's trying to calm him down. They have like what look like CPR masks on their faces, like what lifeguards put around
Hmm.
people when they have to administer CPR. It looks so cheesy. Anyway, but they're sitting there with these on their face. The pilots are trying to land the thing. The ship's shaking, and Katai and Cypher's like holding him. He's not strapped into the ship, and Katai is strapped down. He's trying to do some breathing exercise. Boom! It looks like Cypher is thrown out the darn ship. He's just gone, and I'm like, oh wow. And all of a sudden, we see the ship is going down, and Katai is sitting there, and he's in his seat, and he's getting turned and spun, and I remember screaming, pass out," because if you were ever in a plane crash, the best thing for you to probably do is pass out. That's either you're anyway, not to be morbid, but you'll either die quickly or you pass out and you have a better chance of living. Really weird how that works. But anyway, Katai lives. Oh my gosh. He wakes up and he's already struggling to breathe because this planet's atmosphere is not really good for humans. Goes around and all the rest of the crew's dead. But yet he finds his dad. What it looks like, he looks like he fell in another part of the ship. But really, Tim, you watch the trailer and it looks like he is flown out of it. Like it looked like he was gone, but yet somehow he was just in the ship. And I was like, oh my gosh, that really was deceiving. And I got scared that we were going to have an M. Night twist where Will Smith was never there. I was so scared, Tim. I was like, because that is something he would do.
And I feel like that might have made the movie more interesting.
I honestly looking back
It might
now,
not have failed so. It might not have failed so bad.
but again, so and with the crash though, that single Ursa is gone. It's escaped. Will Smith's character is out of commission. Both legs are broken. One has like he's bleeding out and he's what's the thing? You wrap a belt around your leg.
Tourniquet.
He's basically done a tourniquet around his leg, and he's at the Katai has helped him get to the front of the back of the ship. So the ship has basically ripped in half,
Hmm.
and their distress signal that's on the front of the ship is broken, and so he has to get the spare one that's on the back of the ship that's like miles and miles away. And he goes, "All right, Katai, you need to do this on your own. You need to go from here to there." So that's really like the big premise of it is you need to go here to there. He gives him what he calls the cutlass. It's this little like awesome like tube looking thing, and you can change it to you can split it in half, and it can make different weapons, different cutlasses. It was pretty cool. I really like the weapon. Um, and I should mention now that they have these fancy futuristic suits, and they actually will change color depending on what's going on. So at one point in the movie, he gets poisoned, and the suit turns this sickly white. Later in the movie, it goes cold. It starts turning white and blue on him to warn him. So basically, the son is given a quest to go here. His dad is going to be watching, and he will be observing. He has a med kit and a few other things on his back to help administer for poison. Spoiler, he gets poisoned. And he is given these little packets. He's given 6 little packets that have gel in them, and when he eats the gel, it will coat his lungs so that he can absorb the oxygen better, and those should last about 20 to 24 hours. So 6 hours, he gets 6 capsules for 180 to 200 hours. So that's what they're hoping for, is that he can get there safely. So we follow Katai, and we follow him. At one point, he runs into these crazy monkeys, and his dad advises him to not attack, but Katai does. So we're getting a lot of struggle. We're getting a lot of issues. There's a lot of like tension for some reason, and we don't really know why. And then it kind of shows that Katai had an older sister, Senshi. Basically, what is revealed to us is that Senshi sacrificed herself to save Katai from an Ursa, which I don't know if they really revealed it very well, but I'm pretty sure the Ursa that they took with them was the Ursa that long ago attacked their family. Their dad was out fighting, and and Senshi had put Katai in a little box, like little bubble container, so that it wouldn't smell him because he was terrified, and she was going to fight it, and it shows her getting impaled and beaten and just killed. So just keep that in mind. So because throughout the movie, Will Smith is getting weaker and weaker, and he'll keep like having flashbacks of him talking to Kenshi on her 19th birthday, flashbacks of her reading Moby Dick, flashbacks of her talking about her brother, all this fun stuff. So we just have this tension between it's God of War. For any of you who played the newest God of War game with Atreus and God of War, it kind of feels like that. The whole time when I was watching this, I was like, this is God of War. Which I definitely would, if I were to remake this movie, I definitely would have tried to do that. I would not have had Cypher. I would have had Cypher be with Katai the whole time, or at least to a certain part. I felt like it would have been a good thing to have him side by side. They both crash. I would have made them. Well, I don't even know if I would have had them on Earth, but when the crash came down, I would have had them both survived, because his dad probably would have, like everyone else, could have been freaking out and getting emotional, and Cypher could have sat him down and tried to do the breathing exercises and helped him like hold his breath to pass out, something like that, so that they survived.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that Cypher could join him. Because I feel like if they would have had these interactions while they were together, it might have been more memorable. Because there is a scene where he gets poisoned by this leech when he's running away from the monkeys, and he has to administer it, but he's losing his eyesight and he can't see into the med pack. And Cypher's like, "You need to do this yourself. Calm down." And he's like, "I need your help, Dad." And he's like sobbing, getting emotional, and he's just trying to help him. And on that scene, if Cypher would have been there, he would have been tried to like, "You can do this. Like, you need to do this on your own." And then finally, when Cypher like gives up crying, he like turns him around and stabs him in the heart with the medicine to finally help him with it. Because what he had to do in the movie, because he couldn't feel with his hands, he had to hold the second dose and fall on it and administer it to himself. It was actually, there were
Okay.
some scenes, again, that was a scene I liked. The few scenes where they have conflict, I really enjoyed. Because sometimes father and sons can, have disagreements, and it's kind of hard to disagree with your dad. And it's kind of feels like sometimes you want to, not let your dad down. So, or maybe you're awesome and you just
I mean, obviously, but
But I think a lot of us can relate to not wanting to let a parent down. And the pressure that this is the leader of the Rangers who has no emotion, that would be a big toll on Kitai. And I wish we would have seen that more. So to have them together, because at the beginning of the movie, he comes home to his family and then crashes, and he's still separate from his son. And it just,
I feel like kind of the idea that they wanted to push with this movie was the connection between father and son, and they kind of I feel like they failed. That's another one of the things that website said was that um, the idea that a father and a son, or the father is trying to connect with the son, but then ends up not being there
he wasn't.
to connect with him. I feel like I would have to agree with you. I think having Cypress
Cypher.
Cipher Bill Cipher. I'll just have to remember that.
There you go.
Having Cipher there with Katai, I think most of the way, if not the whole way, probably the best way to do it. And I don't know. I also feel like just the idea for this movie, the main idea for this movie, could take place in 20 minutes, right? Like the main idea. Another thing that this website said was that it's very repetitive, and that you see Katai get hurt a lot, and that he is just struggling a lot, and it just feels repetitive. And I feel like something that could have helped with that is maybe a longer introduction.
Yeah, and that's what I would have done is a
Mm-hmm.
longer introduction. Maybe we could have even had Ursa attack their home, and Cypher sees
I'm
how.
thinking all the way at the beginning we see an introduction, and maybe it's maybe it's the sister narrating.
Ooh.
I don't know, just to throw kind of a little bit of a
Because that would have been
twist
cool to have a
there.
twist. Ooh, the
Uh-huh.
M. Night Shyamalan twist of like the
Um
narrator we're realizing that she's the sister, and
yeah.
then bam, she's actually dead.
Uh-huh.
That'd be awesome.
But we could totally have her narrate like the whole history of the Ursa, and the whole reason that humans had to move away from Earth, get away from Earth, and move to this new planet Nova Prime, um, and then what's been happening biologically to humans over this 1,000 years.
Mhm.
Because over 1,000 years, in all reality, we could adapt pretty
Well, think
fast.
about 1,000 years from 1,000 years ago from now. We were in the was that Dark
That was
Ages?
Dark
Because
Ages.
Roman Empire and all those had fallen completely. We had gone
Mhm.
into, yeah, we were at the stage of like, well, at least for our history, our families, we were busy being Vikings and knights and all those
Yeah.
things. So Oh, that's crazy sauce.
And just to see how far a civilization can advance in 1,000 years,
Especially on another
right?
planet.
Exactly. Well, and having technology to boost them farther, right? Because you think 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, right? A sword, a shield, a spear,
An arrow.
an arrow, like even bows and arrows weren't as commonplace 2,000 years ago as they were 1,000 years ago. And 1,000 years ago, they were building massive castles, right? All over the place.
Some of them are still standing.
A lot of them are still standing, and it's incredible to see like a tower that's only 20 feet across and 40 feet tall still standing from 1,000 years ago. I probably exaggerated the dimensions a bit, but you get the idea,
Like
right?
there's
And so from right now, 2023, where we have cars, we have guns, um, we have supercomputers in our pockets that fit in the palm of our hand.
these things are smarter and better than the stuff that they were working with when they landed humans on the moon
Yeah,
by so much. It's insane.
yeah. It's incredible, and to take what we have now and to just try to imagine what we would have in the future in 1,000 years, that's difficult.
It is.
It is impossible to know what we're gonna have in 1,000
Well,
years.
and it was really cool because this weapon they have is I loved it, but I really am like surprised that like he didn't have a gun. Like they didn't have
Right?
any guns, and I'm like, wait a minute, these things run off of pheromones, and you want to get up close and personal with these things? So I
Yeah.
definitely probably would have added guns because it was
I'm imagining
ridiculous.
like Star Wars blasters at this point, where
Like it's
we're
like
being able to concentrate and pure energy, right? These are plasma blasts
yeah, I don't know
in Star
why
Wars, at least.
I don't know why they made it so that it's a cut. Like I think the cutlass would have been cool to have as a secondary
Hmm.
because this thing's really cool. He can like
That
go
would be a
across,
really cool
throw it,
secondary.
but I feel like a gun would have really helped us fight these monsters because you're
Hmm.
going to be far away. So unless guns were obsolete or like guns were, I don't know why. I don't know. I just now that you've like mentioned that, my brain is like,
Hmm.
oh wow, I've never even thought of him having a gun. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't they have guns?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and
maybe his gun could have been damaged, blah blah blah.
I'm imagining like if I were to write this story, the little bit that I know about it, um, I would have had the narration, and I'd probably have the narration go for a good 10 to 15 minutes. Like that's a long time for a narration, but like
But while it's going though, you're including the
including
scenes.
bits, right? I would include the scene where the sister dies. I would include maybe some of
I would have probably
Cypher's
done that.
missions.
I think I would have kept the sister seed, the sister death in the middle. But it
Okay.
would have been cool to like introduce everything. And she talks about, my father, you know, my father became one of the best in the world. And again, though, now I'm like, now I can only imagine them with guns.
Yeah. Well, and
That
here's
really
what I'm
bugs me
now
now. You
imagining.
really like poked a hole in that wide open because it's like,
Uh,
why wouldn't you have a gun? If they can smell you based on your pheromones, why don't you stay away and
I
learn to
can
be
smell
calm? Yeah,
you.
sir, I can smell. Oh my gosh, we should like, I should, I should. I'm gonna make a video with the thing trying to get him. I mean, like, are you
Doug,
okay in there? I can smell you. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make a video. I'm gonna do it.
please do.
Oh, it's gonna be there. Oh my gosh, I can smell you. Like, but if it can smell you, why not have long range weapons so that you can be calm and collected? And by all means, if it, oh, I do remember that they could cloak, and so it uncloak, they can hide in front. They really didn't do a good job mentioning that because at one point he asks his father, when did you ghost for the first time? When did you learn to flump? Which again, I feel like humans should just learn to have adapted, but some people struggle with emotion still. and maybe the traumatizing event of seeing his sister get killed, he could never get over it, and that causes him to have emotional outbursts.
Or the ghosting could have to do with some piece of technology instead.
Lobotomizing.
Yeah.
That is
maybe
all I
maybe
can
like a
think of.
computer chip that's put into your brain, and you can switch it on and off at will, maybe.
Maybe I don't know.
Will Smith at
Will
will.
Smith.
Um, but I don't know.
That would be that. See, that would have been cool. Like we made these things. So, like, yeah, because
Mhm.
if you're in the future, why don't you just get? Why don't you just have something that can vroom and it just you wear like a helmet or something, and you press a button and it turns you into these mindless,
Yeah,
not mindless, but emotionless.
I think maybe less biological adaptation and maybe a little bit more technological
Yeah.
adaptation, right? Because you think about real history, right? Way back when, a simple leather jerkin, and maybe a small helmet was enough to keep you protected from slashing damage, right? In terms of D&D speak, um, it was enough. It was enough to stop a sword most of the time, and then arrows were introduced and other weapons, and as new weapons were created and distributed, new armor had to be introduced, right? The bow and arrow was introduced, right? And that stopped most people from wearing like full plate armor, because an arrow
Just break through
shot
it.
from a longbow can pierce an inch of steel,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, it depends on the shot, but the point is, like, there's that. And a mace, a very heavy blunt weapon, can crush it easy. And then you introduce firearms. What armor is going to stop a firearm way back then,
Not.
right? When firearms were first introduced, people stopped wearing armor altogether. Basically, they were like, well, this is pointless weight, so let's choose uniforms instead, and we'll just all shoot together and we'll do mass damage that way. Now we have Kevlar vests, and for now that's useful.
But not perfect.
It's not perfect. No armor ever was.
No.
But I'm imagining, like, over 1,000 years, when
'Cause
you
we
have a
adapt.
when you have a big threat, right? Firearms, that was huge.
Why would we get rid of guns? I'm sorry. Now that you pointed that out, I can't get over it.
Yeah. The thing about the firearms, right? That was a huge leap in modern technology. And from that, now we have our modern firearms. From the flintlock pistol and the cannon, we now have a super simple pistol that we can hide in our boot. We have sniper rifles that can hit their target from half a mile away accurately, right? And I feel like when these Ursa creatures are introduced, that would that would cause a need for an advance in this in weapons technology and
And I feel
protection
like
technology.
we ourselves would also like get bigger, change differently. We would
Yeah.
like start smelling differently. Like, and I feel like, and since they were, and I wish they would have, they made it so that on this planet the gravity was a little that this Nova Prime that they were on, the gravity was less, so they could run faster. And then they go to Earth, and I feel like I'm like, nah. I feel like we as humans would be like, nah. We're gonna become. But again, it was so
Well,
weird because there was no like big threat. There was nothing. This movie was simply go here, go there, send a distract. It was just a little side filler story of a movie. It was a filler episode of a movie, which
yeah,
just
I get
it
you.
was a side quest. It was just a random little thing, or maybe it just felt like it was leading to. It was a simple story of a father and son getting lost and surviving. Fine.
Have you seen The Day After Tomorrow?
Yes.
Um,
Yes, with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes.
Yeah, loved it.
That is another movie where it's man against nature, right?
Yeah.
They executed that movie great. I love that movie. Thanks, Zach, for showing me that movie.
Had you never seen it before?
Zach had me watch it 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh.
And it's a good movie.
It was really good. It takes me a while to watch it again because it really freaked me out the
Yeah,
first time.
I get
the
you.
scene where they all freeze. Ooh,
Uh-huh.
ooh, terror. I am terrified to freeze, insta freeze like that. Terrifying.
Chances are you're not going to have to deal with that ever.
You're right.
Anyway,
Maybe.
the
I
point
don't
that I'm
know.
trying to make is that in that movie, it's man against nature, right? There was a big threat that was ever present, and we saw it over and over in the movie, right? We see the instant freezing, right? The helicopter instantly freezes and crashes.
And then the guys get out and it's like,
Guys get out and they just turn to statues,
oh my god.
right? And then there's the scene with the what is it, the big barge ship
Yes.
in the canal freezes over and they have to go in there to get supplies, and then the wolves come in hunting them, and
my gosh.
right, like
Memories.
it's in that movie, the threat is always present. And in good storytelling, the threat is always present. Always. If it's a good story
And the threat
that has a threat.
and
I
the
guess.
threat, there was a threat. There was the single Ursa. And I'm trying to think of if I did this, because I felt like there had to be like an issue. And I wanted to introduce the lobotomizing because since he was so emotional, they were like, he is going to be a threat to us someday. And we need to take care of this. And Cypher's like, no, I'm gonna prove that my son do not like, and I imagine the whole Vulcan scene. He's no emotion. You dare, like, you do know who you're talking to. Like, this is my son. He is the son of Cypher. He will be able to, like, no emotions. Just like he never shows anger. And I want them to like be like, here's the ultimatum. Prove to us that your son is worthy to be a ranger. You take him out for the test.
Mhm.
So maybe that was the thing, is like the test is they go out and do the training and they can still crash fine. But I felt like if there had been like, if your son fails this, he will be one of the hushed, like one of the shamed, like one of the suppressed.
I like the hushed.
Yeah, like one of the hushed.
That's a cool
I was
name.
thinking like suppressed or the hushed, like something like that, to hush your emotions.
Yeah.
He will become, we'll go with the hushed. Like he will become one of the hushed. Like just we needed some greater stakes. And so again, I felt like if we could have had him with his son trying to train him and he can't be with him. And I really felt heavy inspiration from the 2018 God of War video games. For anyone who has not played that game, I recommend it. Even if you just need to borrow it or play it on PC and just play the story mode. There is a way you go easiest and you strictly just get the story and you just kind of hack and slash whatever. You don't die a lot. It really is made so you can enjoy it, or just look it up on YouTube. It is one of my favorite stories. I have a poster in here because of how much that game and the newest game made to me. The Kratos that we have is what Will Smith was what Cypher could have been in a way. And this was 5 years before that game. So I imagine
I do want to give a language warning for those games.
Oh yes.
If you struggle with foul language,
There
maybe don't play it.
Yeah.
Play
There's a few dwarves. I'm pretty sure you can get there's a few YouTubers out there who will edit their videos.
Yeah, they'll censor it.
So yeah, if you're not that, look it up on YouTube and get the censored. But with Brock the dwarf. Dwarves are dwarves.
Yep.
They're a very unruly bunch.
I do want to say, I think one way that we could have the threat be big is we could have this alien race, right? Maybe the whole reason that we left Earth in the first place is because these aliens showed up to Earth and they were like, these people are weird. Let's have some fun or whatever, and they release maybe some Ursa onto Earth to start it, right? And then over 1,000 years, right, they chase us through the galaxy and we end up on Nova
Yeah,
Prime. And
it's so weird because it's like, why are they chasing us? Why are we still scared of
yeah,
them? Are we fighting them? Are we?
I don't
So
know.
it's like we're trying to fight this war, but they say that they made the Ursa to hunt us. So it's like we never get to see the actual
It
aliens.
could be that maybe we ended up killing a representative or something. They come and find us, we kill their representative, and then they're angry
I
and want
honestly feel
revenge.
like I would have gotten rid
I don't
of
know.
the whole alien. I felt like maybe
I don't know. I
the
kind of
Ursa themselves are the strict aliens.
okay.
It's just them, and they are just these symbiotic, not symbiotic, they're just these monsters.
Mhm.
They travel planet after planet. Maybe we stayed on Earth, I don't know, or maybe they just,
I
I don't know
I don't
how,
know.
because if we ran away and if it's an alien race chasing us, we're fighting a war, we never see it was so weird.
It
So
could be that these aliens are trying to spread throughout the galaxy, and so and they are the Ursa, and so maybe they show up to Earth, and Earth has favorable living conditions for them, and so they set up shop here, and they push us out, and then they kind of chase us because where we go, they can live,
yeah,
and then
it's that.
everywhere that we go, there's Ursa, and so maybe that's where our technology advancements can come into play. Um,
I
I
honestly,
like the idea of fancy guns, maybe like almost like Metroid or Mega Man
anything,
suits,
anything like
right?
that. Like,
With like a power
because they
suit.
couldn't, because then they can't smell you. So why
Mm-hmm.
don't we have these fancy suits? Why don't the suits cover our body? Why don't we have armor that suppresses us from being smelled?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like, maybe Earth was the place for them to be, and and Ursa are just these entities that, an asteroid came down, they spread, they start attacking humans. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, a quiet place matched with God of War type of thing. We have these
Uh-huh.
civilizations that are high up so that the Ursa can't really travel, but they're still like infesting other places. Like it was so weird how this alien situation was that it was like I don't
They could have. I bet they probably could have fleshed it out better. And like
he's
just
not
the number of ideas that you and I have already come up with in the last 10 minutes shows just how much better this movie could have
it
been just from
it's
the
science
alien
fiction.
side.
It's just science fiction. All you have to do is science fiction is just fantasy grounded and with upgraded technology. That's all if
Mm-hmm.
you really want to make good science fiction, look into fantasy and try to root it into the technological side of things. That's how Star Trek was made.
Mm-hmm.
That is how Star Wars was made. It just the force is magic. You can fight me. I'm probably gonna have someone break down my door after saying
The
that.
the force
They're
the force
wizards.
is magic. The Jedi are wizards. They have magic
I have a
swords.
man in here who is a fantasy fanatic and a Star Wars fanatic. If he agrees with me, I'm
Oh,
saying we're fine.
I've been saying that for
Then we're
years.
good. So science fiction is just a fun play on fantasy because that's what it is. Science fiction is, I told my sister science fiction is fantasy. And my sister looks at me and she's like, "What?" And I go, "Yeah." She's like, "What about 1984?" I'm like, "That's science fiction, but also what's the term of fiction that
Historical fiction.
historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
That's historical fiction, not fantasy. It's historical fiction, and you can get, but there is a little bit of science in anyway. That's a random tangent. Sorry, everyone. So the point is the main. Well, we went on. I don't even know where to even jump back to, but the point of this movie is that there's a lot of conflict and between the father and son, and at one point, Katai he broke two of the liquid gels, So he has cut his days. He's not going to make it. They have to abort mission. They're going to die. But he's at this high peak, and his dad's looking, and he's looking at a computer, and he sees that if Katai just flies, he could possibly make it. And Katai's like, oh. And he goes, we're going to abort the mission. He's like, I can make it, Dad. I can do this. And he's getting all emotional. And he finally like just calls his dad out. Stop. And he basically just says, stop blaming me for, my sister's death. What was I supposed to do? What was I supposed to do? I was a little boy. He was a scared little boy. Was he supposed to die with his sister?
Mm-hmm.
And his dad's just like kind of sassing him, like, you could have at least been there, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and where were you? So basically, Cypher blames himself for not being there. And who could have guessed that this creature would have been there? This creature had found a human civilization. It had uncloaked and it had attacked. Don't know where their mom was. Their mom is alive, but it attacked him and his sister, and it killed his sister. And anyway, but I loved this part though, because Katai is like, you're wrong, and I'm going to prove it. And he just runs and jumps off that cliff. And I was like, oh, and his suit has this little squirrel suit feature.
He has a wingsuit.
It was awesome. And
That's
it was
cool.
actually awesome. And he has this big hawk chasing him. And again, the world has advanced in 1,000 years as well. So the birds are bigger. Everything's bigger.
Well, without humans, right? We are apex predators.
Yeah.
We are the most. We're at the top of the top right now.
Mm-hmm.
We hunt everything.
Like, of course, there's things out there that can kill us, but we're the ones who are like, we can make anyway. So he's flying. He's trying to get away from the bird, and he gets captured by the bird. And so this next little part I actually really loved too. Like this little bit, I was like, this wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, this scene is where I would have had them go separate ways.
This is where the split would have been.
This is where the split would have been to me. I would have had what I would have had is they were arguing. They're arguing at this point, and they're like, and they've lost and Katai has lost his, two of his, and Cypher has his packs already full, and they're not going to make it, and they're debating on jumping, and they're getting emotional, and finally, because Katai's getting emotional,
Mm-hmm.
The Ursa comes at the top of this cliff. Okay, the top of this cliff. We see them fighting it, and they both have their weapons. They're both, which again, probably now they probably would have guns, but guns probably might have not have worked. Maybe the shells made it obsolete, but we would have.
Or maybe when
the ship crashed,
as people advance and there's weapons advance, maybe the Ursa also adapt.
But I feel like we would have made guns. I don't know.
Their shells, maybe the Ursa have like an armor that they wear or something.
I feel like we would have made something. So, or maybe the guns crashed. But again, I honestly think that if I would have written this movie, humans would have been on Earth, and they have like a testing ritual of going into this closed off area. I don't know. There's so many weird things about this. I honestly, maybe they trained on a different planet, or maybe they never would have come to Earth. I don't know. Or maybe I think the simple idea of how we would have done it is Ursa somehow follow humans. They're just this weird thing that follow. They are somehow able to.
Maybe they feed on emotion.
They feed on emotion, and they somehow can follow us. They're very simple in their technology, but yet they're able to get in these giant rock crater things and fly and crash into other planets and devour and spread. And humans are tasty because we are emotional humans, and over the 1,000 years we slowly were starting to drop emotion, but they keep coming because they know where humans are and whatever this mother hive thing is. And we won't make that a big thing, but we're just doing.
I mean, we totally
we
could.
could, but for now, this small story is. I do like that it's a small story of father and son. The son needs a train, so maybe the Ursa. I love how this episode is probably gonna be so random, and you're all probably gonna hate us for this random episode. We barely made an hour, so we're doing great. I think that if I did this movie, Ursa have been chasing humans. They somehow can chase the humans. We'll you all fill in the blanks, whatever. Again, this is kind of pitch meeting things I would have done. Um, they still come to Earth. I did love the scene where he's like, "Do you know where we are?" Because they crashed on this planet. We're on Earth. Like I loved that part. I was like, "Ooh, that's Willie's right there." I kind of liked it. So, or maybe I missed that. Oh my gosh, I think I'm dumb. I think we went to this planet because we destroyed Earth. Humans left Earth. Oh my gosh, I think I totally spaced that part out because I was so obsessed on the. Oh my gosh, I think that's why they did it. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. Anyone who's seen this movie is probably laughing at me right now. Yeah, we left Earth because we had destroyed it.
Gotcha.
We had messed it up. We left, and that's where the aliens are there. Oh my gosh. Okay, now I don't. Now I have to apologize to M Night. I was so confused, like, because they showed that in the movie, like we destroyed it, but then when they, okay, that made way more sense. They really, I just maybe I wasn't paying attention. I swear I watched this movie. I promise y'all, I watched this movie. So that makes more sense. So I like that. We had to go to a new planet. On this planet, there are these things. Okay, that makes way more sense. So Earth has evolved. Humans can't really live on it because we've been away. Okay. Wow. Wow. So I would still keep. Wow. I feel so dumb, everyone. I totally forgot that there was a big green moment at the beginning because I kind of spaced out on it, I guess, because I was like, oh, yeah, we destroy the Earth. That's what most of these post-apocalyptic movies are about. And then I just saw aliens and I was like, what? So, oh my gosh, I feel so dumb. We gotta start the whole episode over, guys. Sorry. So, hello. This is. I'm just kidding.
I don't have the energy
I don't
for
have
it.
the
I'm
energy for
sorry.
that. I'm sorry. Just whatever. You're not getting an episode this week. Okay. So, with that being said, let's just go back to the scene where I would have had them split. So, since they're having this argument about if he could do it, if he could jump off this cliff, if they were together,
Mhm.
because he's like, I still have my packs, you're not going to make it. And we need to jump in this trail, but I don't, but you can't do it. He's like, you never think I can do anything. When are you going to stop blaming me for her death? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, and that's when I would have the Ursa attack. And, Cypher's not showing any emotion and he's like trying to attack it, but he's kind of gotten a little emotional because they talked about his daughter. This is his son. And now that Ursa is attacking his only child, and I would want as it's closing down on um, Katai,
Maybe it's about to kill
it's about to
Katai.
kill him. I just imagine him like just letting out this roar. Just,
Raw
yeah,
emotion.
and that thing just, and it looks at him, and he realizes I'm not, because he's like trying to get it, but since it snuck up on him, it knocked away like one of his cutlasses. He tried to get it, but since he had some emotion, he was able to get it. And since Katai has way more yummy fear, he's going after him. He pulls him away, and they get it. And I just imagine that he flings the creature off or it runs away. I don't remember how I wanted it, but I just wanted that to be the part where
How big are these creatures?
they are big. Think of like a horse,
Okay.
like as a small. I think of bigger than a horse with probably 8 limbs ish kind of thing.
I'm because here's what
But
I
I
was
imagine
imagining.
that
I
again, that
was
humans are
imagining
stronger.
I was imagining almost
Ooh,
oh
you hadn't seen it, so you don't know what they look
no,
like.
I don't know what they look like. I was imagining like these about horse sized um almost like mammoths. Tiny, not tiny, but mammoth, like black mammoth like creatures about the size of a horse with claws, big claws, massive maw.
That's what it looks like.
Oh, that's way creepier than I
Oh,
than
yeah.
I was imagining.
Yeah, they're creepy. They're creepy. They're very creepy. I will admit that they would have been cool. I wish we could have gotten more of a fight, but having just one of them, it was a cool threat, and I wish it would have affected them more.
Hmm.
So I would say that this is the midpoint, and this thing, catches them. He needs to get it away, and he is fighting it, and that's when he's like, jump, jump, and that's when we get the epic jump scene. And so now we're going to kind of mix in with the movie of why I loved these next scenes, and what I would keep is that, Jaden's Katai, while he's flying, a bird chases him, and the bird gets him. After this big epic chase, the bird gets him, and he wakes up in a big nest, and there's these adorable baby birds, what are like they're babies, but they're the size of chickens. So adorable. Like they're really, I was like, oh.
Okay.
And these leopard things are attacking the nest. And, Katai gets this epic fight, and he is fighting them. And I really like this scene because he's fighting them, but all the little birds are getting killed. All the babies are getting taken. All of them are getting torn out of the nest. He's trying so hard to protect him, and they were all like nuzzling up to him in the nest, and they were probably going to try to eat him later, but still, it was cute.
Hmm.
And he kills all of them, and the mama bird has been fighting them too. And finally, all the big cats are defeated and dead. And as he's leaving the nest, he climbs down the tree, this big old tree, and the mama bird is just crying at the bottom over all her babies. And you're like, aw. And he lets him leave. And as he's traveling, he's trying to get to, he realizes, he maps out that he can make it in a cave, because he has to, so Earth every night will freeze, and he has to get to these warm spots. Now he doesn't know where they are. And he's like, I can make it. And he figures out, and he's lost communication with his dad after the crash. And, as he goes, he gets to another freezing night, and he passes out, and he's starting to freeze. And the camera did this creepy thing where it shows him being dragged, and we're watching from Katai or Jaden Smith's point of view of him getting dragged, and it was so unnerving. And he wakes up, and it was the mama bird. She had protected him, and he gets out, and he's completely warm. He lived, and he goes and says thank you, and he goes to pet it, and it's dead.
Oh.
It was so sweet. She saved him. And they never really touch on it more, but I loved it. So what I would have done is, when they were separated, I would have had Jaden still fight. The mama bird kidnaps him, and Will Smith had gotten away from the ghost. Oh yeah, because all he had to do is turn off his emotions. So as he's fighting it, he turned off his emotions. But since his legs were messed up, that's where I would have him broken.
Mm-hmm.
He is now crawling, and he's like, I'm not going to make it. They've lost communication, blah, blah, blah. Or all they can do is or maybe they still had it, but, he ghosted, and the creature, and it left him. Because it's that blind. In the final fight scene, Jaden turns off his emotions in the middle of the fight when he's on the ground, and it walks over him. They're that blind when you can just stop secreting pheromones, which is, but I like it.
I mean, it's not how fear works.
It's not how fear works, but
yeah.
I definitely could have gone with the ghosting. I kind of like your idea of, they had these suits, mm-hmm. and maybe Jaden's or Katai's was ripped open, and so he's just secreting it. And so when he roared, they don't do a good job. But finally, when he ghosted, as you could put it, maybe that's when he pressed the suit back on, and he turned off his emotions, so it went double fold, and then the creature left, but he still had broken legs or just severely wounded. So I still would have had Jaden save or help the mama bird after that fight, and he was able to find the hot spots. But we see Will Smith freezing, and when he wakes up, he's the one covered with the bird, because Jaden tried to protect his babies. Jaden tried to protect her babies, so she's going to protect the human that smells like the mm-hmm. human that tried to help.
I'm imagining almost like a Star Wars Tauntaun moment.
Kind of.
Where I just just for the sake of the tauntaun feel, maybe the bird could have like almost like a kangaroo pouch.
Maybe, but again,
I don't know.
it's a
That's just
bird.
just for the sake of the tauntaun feel. That doesn't have to happen.
I love it though.
I think
But what
it
I would have
could be
was
funny.
imagining was him going like, because they just had that fight, and then the thing rips him off. All he sees is his son jump off the cliff, and he goes, "I hope he made it."
Mhm.
And then, maybe he saw the bird chase after him, and like he saw it as he was fighting the monster, and he goes, "Oh no!" And he's like talking to him the whole time. And after that, anyway. But I just imagine that Will Smith's character, Cypher, is the one that's passing out in the snow, and he goes, "I'm so sorry, Katai," and he's actually like kind of crying now.
Mhm.
He's like, my boy," and he's like, "I know you couldn't have saved her," and he's like, he knows he can't hear him, but he's still apologizing over the intercom, and then like as he's blaring out, we see these big wings, blurry winged thing come down, and he wakes up the next morning and the creature saved him. And so we as the audience know like, oh, Katai tried to
Mhm.
help him and the bird did its best to help his family and it gave its life for it. I would have kept that. I would have kept
Okay.
that scene. I really liked it. And so with that being said, in the original movie, after the snowstorm, he is able to get close and he finds the ship and he gets the signal, but now he has to, and he's talking to his dad after in the ship, out in the second part of the ship. He's like, he's like, "Yeah, get to the highest point. I believe in you. You got to get to the highest point so you can set off the signal." But the Ursa's there. And so he's like climbing, fighting it. He's running away. He's like climbing in a mountain. He's getting up to the point. The Ursa is like chasing him and he uses his sword to like he's like climbing through this little chimney basically of the mountain
Mhm.
and he's getting pulled on by the Ursa and he puts his sword up and he cuts it through and he kicks it, gets it up, blah blah blah, and he's just letting all the fear out and it's just continually chasing him and it was kind of an intense scene, but I was like, okay.
Maybe some extra camera angles and
Yeah.
some other maybe music or something could have made it more intense.
Yeah, and if this was my movie, yeah, definitely would have made it more intense. I feel like Will's character is, um, at that point, that would be just the point where he's just talking to him, and now he's trying to get to another safe spot, but he's weak. I would have maybe had him seeing his daughter instead of Katai seeing his sister. At one point in the movie, he had made a little boat and he was going down the river
Mhm.
and his sister's talking to him and she's like, "You gotta wake up. You gotta wake up." And that was when the snow was starting to fall and freeze over. He had to get out of there. She's like, "You gotta get up." And then he's like, "I don't want to wake up." And all of a sudden her face turns into this crushed up, mutilated form. "Wake up." And I was like, that was weird. Like, do you really want to have him see your sister that way? And I think that would have been cooler for Will Smith is every time he looks over, while he's getting sicker and sicker, he keeps seeing a mutilated daughter, the
Mhm.
body that he found, and he blames himself. That's what I would have done. Not Katai seeing his sister, but
Yeah.
Cypher seeing his daughter and blaming himself for what happened and also blaming Katai. But at the end of the movie, when he's kind of when he's once again kind of really sick and dying, right when Katai is about to, he beats the creature after going ghost. Oh my gosh, that was a Danny Phantom call out. Kills the monster after ghosting. He sends out the signal and they come and get him. I would have had Cypher talking to the ghost of his daughter, the ghost. I had quotations. Yeah, that's funny. Ghost. Anyway, but I would have had her look normal after he was so proud of his son because the whole time he's like what like sitting there listening, and I would have been really cool if he could see the point and in the distance he's like sitting there watching and he just sees this little figure far away just yeah, because he doesn't have they don't have communication, they
Mhm.
don't have anything, and he goes And it was so cute because at one point he goes, "Good boy." Like he's just so proud of him. And I just loved it. And he sends out the signal and it shows maybe like Will Smith talking to his daughter after that point. She goes, "See, he did it." And she's like, "It's not his fault. He was just a boy. You would have lost both of us. Be proud of him." And he goes, "I am proud. I am so proud of him." And then that's when I would like have the rescue team coming because they have warp speed. They probably could make it real quick. Blah blah blah. They could have landed. Blah blah blah. It's fine. Their ships wouldn't have been damaged. They could have made it pretty quickly, and it shows. And I would have kept the kind of the last scene. The last scene is Will Smith. It shows Kitai running in, and it shows all these cadets watching the footage of him killing the creature because I probably should have mentioned this on his suit and on his med pack there were cameras and his med pack had been placed on the floor so it could see him killing the creature. I still would have liked to see him seeing all these people react to his video and being like, wow, he's a ranger. Because since he still has emotion, but now that he's gotten better at turning it off, I don't know. I really kind of wish that we could get rid of the stigma that fear is. I don't know. Because I feel like that's kind of a negative thing. It's like, oh, he learned to turn off his fear. And so I feel like the point of this would have been to be able to embrace your fear.
So I today just finished listening on audiobook to the Reckoners series written by Brandon Sanderson.
Oh.
And there's this whole thing about fear and spoiler. If you haven't read this book, maybe skip ahead.
Oh, and I
have you not read it?
No.
Are you planning on it?
If it's Brandon Sanderson,
it's good. I won't spoil it. There's this whole thing about fear.
Oh.
It's very important.
Wait a minute. Is The Reckoners the superhero one?
Yes.
Oh, I have read that.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Go right ahead. I was like, wait a minute. I have read that one. I love that one.
There's this whole thing about fear, right? And how these heroes' fears, these epics' fears, create their weaknesses, right? And the only way to negate that weakness is by facing your fear and pushing through it, right? And that's something that you mentioned earlier, and I wanted to talk about it then, but I kind of forgot as we kept talking. But like just this whole, I agree. I think there is definitely a negative stigma towards fear. Fear in and of itself is a very good thing. It's a healthy thing. It shows that you're alive and that you're sane. If you are not afraid of anything, there's an issue.
Yeah. And because
it's natural. It's an instinctual feeling. It's an instinctual emotion. Obviously, you don't have to have terrible arachnophobia like my dad, who will squeal when there's a spider within 5 feet of him.
That's awesome.
Or you don't have to have a terrible fear of heights, or a fear of snakes, or of water, or whatever. Having a fear of losing those that you care about, right? That's my greatest fear. My greatest fear is losing my wife.
Oh.
And having her health problems take over and not. Anyway,
you're gonna make me cry.
That's my greatest fear, and the fact that I have that fear shows that I'm alive, that I am a feeling human being, that I am sane, right? And I think with this movie, I don't like the idea that they smell fear. I kind of want it to be that they smell emotion.
I feel like...
And maybe the different types of emotions have different strengths, right? Maybe it can be dependent on how strongly you feel an emotion and what said emotion is.
Well, if you're overexcited, if you're overly sad, when you're emotional, your body is spiking with all sorts of stuff. So I feel like emotions would have been the smarter choice. So my theory of my version of them wanting to lobotomize people, the hushed,
Get
because
rid of
they get
emotion.
because they get
Period.
too emotional, is a problem. Like, and I'm not talking like, how we've kind of talked throughout this. Like, if I talk to you and I'm like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. Like, I can say that that's passable in their society. But hey, man, are you having a great
How
day?
you reacted to finding out that our number one last episode
Yes.
were the same.
Yes, that would have killed us in this world.
Yeah.
With the Ursa around, I definitely would have been put down as a hushed because I'm an emotional person. And I think that's I know it's pretty dark for me writing it, but that hurts me. It
gives
scares
a connection.
Me. Yeah.
I feel like that would give a better connection to this story, right? Because I don't want this whole thing to be about fear.
No, it's about
fear is a good thing. I said it already. Fear is a good, healthy thing. If you feel fear, you are healthy.
So
somewhat.
I think emotion would be better. Emotion would have been the better choice, and I feel like his dad was really good at turning off emotions and was able to be. But when his son was the last of his children was in danger, and after talking about his daughter, he cracked, and he was able to, and because of that crack, he was able to fight the monster. And again, I also want humans to be they've adapted to be a lot stronger. Like I want to see Kratos moment and him punch the Ursa and it rocks its head. Like, I wanted to see something like that. I really, in my head, took a lot of inspiration from the 2018 video game. I say the 2018 because the first 3 games of Kratos, we don't want that Kratos.
We don't want that Kratos. But I mean, it could make for an interesting story. But I agree.
I don't ever want my life to be that I went from the 2018 Kratos to the early 2010s Kratos, because that would be
That's regression.
And again, just throwing it out there, if we ever do a God of War video game story, I want old Kratos to fight young Kratos as a boss fight. I want whatever fates of whatever deity he fights next. If he does, Santa Monica, if you ever listen to this, I need there to be a young Kratos fight, because that would be
that would be pretty cool.
I just imagine the Blades of Chaos going into old Kratos and he goes, "No, not this," and just that's for another time. That is definitely that would be a movie pitch if I ever did a God of War movie. Anyway, so with the God of War,
ignore the sirens in the background.
I'm not going back, Tim. I'm not going back.
It's okay. That was an ambulance.
Oh, good. That wasn't an ambulance. Oh, so on the God of War way of thinking, there is a quote that I absolutely loved, and I kind of wanted to implement it in the way of thinking. It really got me thinking when I first started this movie. And at one point in the video game, you choose to go on and fight something, and Atreus goes, why are we doing this? And Kratos goes, because you are afraid of it. And the best way to overcome our fears is to face it. So I feel like to face your fears and to accept your emotions, to have control of your emotions, truly is, I don't find any problem with having control of your emotions. But the fear that if his son and him failed, that he would be lobotomized and become the hushed and bring shame to them, and also he would lose his son, I feel like would have been a awesome way to do this movie. Because now that they have finally figured out the root of why he's so emotional, this PTSD of his, I'm not going back, Tim. I'm not.
That was a fire truck.
Okay.
It's not
good.
The cops.
Okay. I'm getting nervous now. Not the silly goose bullet. Just open up. No.
You'll never take me alive.
You'll never take me alive. You have a license for that? No, thanks, Tim. Now I have ASDF in my head. I would just say that after they have resolved this issue between father and son, this big family therapy thing, I almost called him Atreus. Katai has, found solace. Him and his father have found solace. They have a good connection. And I would finish the movie just like with this one of them hugging and holding each other. Because, you know, Katai comes in at the end of the movie, everyone's watching his awesome kill, and all these doctors and people are around, and we just see his hand on the side of the table, and we're like, oh no. And then we see him push people away, and he calls his son forward, and he pulls him in, and they hold each other. And I would keep that. And I don't think there would be much being said if we kept the version of he learned to overcome his emotions. They have resolved this issue. He was able to kill an Ursa. I feel like we would understand that he has passed this test. He will not be one of the hushed. And maybe to close off, I was planning on having the father narrate the beginning and then his son at the end. But I really liked how, because they had the son narrate the beginning, and I hated it. I would have him do the end. That's fine. But I really liked having maybe his sister narrate, and then she finish it off, or maybe it's still
and the
Katai.
way that she finishes it off could leave it kind of loose. So maybe she's not there, right? She wasn't there to witness these events, but maybe I don't know.
I feel
just
like
to
her
make-
being a narrator, like an
Omniscient.
omniscient voice, is okay.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with her going, you know, my brother, because I want them to make it feel like her sister was alive at the beginning with narrating, because I really wanted to have the big reveal when they're arguing that the sister's dead. Like, what was I supposed to do in that what was I supposed to do? Leave that box? And then we showed the scene as he's yelling at his father. She put me in there and I was following orders, because she told him, like, that's an order, you stay in there. Like, I would have, anyway. There's a few things that I would have changed, and I apologize to everyone for not fully understanding the beginning of this movie, and I totally take the blame. And I promise I watched this yesterday, and I paid attention, but I guess I didn't pay attention in the beginning.
Supposedly, it's a very confusing movie to begin
It
with.
really
so-
was. I don't think they explained. Just said like we destroyed Earth and blah blah blah. And they're talking weird. They made it seem like the Ursa followed them, and I was like, what? So yes, but long story short, I would want their conflict to be resolved. He would not become part of the hushed. The Ursa was killed, and he passed the test, and he was going to work with his father, and they would blah, blah, blah. Maybe it could lead to a second movie of them trying to figure out how to kill the Ursa, but really, it was just...
It feels very Ender's Gamey.
Yeah, and... Oh, yes! Oh my gosh, wow, you just... I never read those. I need to read those.
They're good.
I need to read those, because I watched the movie, and I was
All you need to read is Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow.
I heard the third one was bleh.
You can skip all of the others. Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow.
I've heard he's a weird author.
He's a weird author.
He's from Utah, though.
Yeah, he is. He's from Utah. He's LDS.
I feel like
He's got some other books that
he
are.
wrote
that
an
show
Iron
it.
He wrote an Iron Man story.
He did.
Did you read that one?
You talked to me about it. You
dang
talked
it.
to me
I
about
was
it, and
like-
I investigated.
You did?
I didn't read it. But I
Okay.
investigated.
I thought I talked about that with a bunch of my buddies from when I grew up with. I didn't think that. I thought I found a fellow.
We had a
Orson
conversation
Scott
about
Card.
it during game night, I think.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, that was a random tangent. But anyway, that's After Earth. And I'm sorry if this episode was all over the place. This movie was kind of all over the place. And maybe I'll actually do a full-on controlled pitch someday, and we'll just have us sit down and like go scene by scene of these movies. But for now, you just kind of got a fixed up. Because this movie there were a few scenes that I was like, no, I was actually looking up and looking at the TV going, oh, other parts I was like, oh. And again, it was very unique. Well, for 2013. Now, though, it's like A Quiet Place, Bird Box, blah, 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 all these things. But I definitely think emotion would have been the better thing to do. So, but maybe one day we'll actually go through it, and I hope you all liked it. And there's not much really more to say. I think next week Tim is gonna. I don't know. Are you gonna try to tag?
I'm gonna try to tackle something. My schedule is incredibly crazy right now.
If not, I
But
have
I will
another
try.
movie ready. So
I will try.
I'm gonna start having movies ready. I found a list online of movies, and Hulu also just has a bunch of movies that I was like, I forgot all about these terrible movies, and so it was good. So After Earth, 2013, I would give it a solid 4 out of 10 in general. Oh, definitely gonna see another M. Night Shyamalan movie here soon, guys. Just saying, but not the one that we don't talk about.
The one that doesn't exist.
The one that doesn't exist. Absolutely not.
If you're curious about what that movie is,
No.
just don't look into it. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
This movie doesn't exist.
You will if you listen to the last episode. That's all you need to know. Okay, there you go.
Oh,
I am not going to say it by name.
it makes me cringe.
It makes me cry.
Physically, it makes me cringe when I think about it. That doesn't matter because it doesn't exist.
Well, with that being said, everyone, we thank you all for listening, and we hope to keep having you join us for our funny, silly stories. So keep enjoying stories, keep having fun, be kind, be good, and until next time, we will see you later, pitches.
Goodbye.
Hi everyone, Willem here, and I just want to invite you all to follow us on our social media platforms. On Facebook, we are Hear Me Out Pitch. On Instagram, we are Hear Me Out Pitch Pod. And on TikTok, we are Hear Me Out Pitch Podcast. So go on all those apps, follow us, like all our videos, subscribe, comment, recommend us funny movies, recommend us terrible movies. We don't care. We just hope that you all join us on this fun adventure, and we will see you later, pitches.